So for months now, Father and I have been just soaking in being, I've been, I don't even know how to say it, in this thing, this place with him about the language of oneness, the language of oneness. And the Lord brought two verses to my mind as I was preparing for the Arizona immersive, the mountaintop immersive. And I brought one of them up. I'm going to bring one of them up here. Jeremiah 20, verse 9. His word is in my heart like a fire shut up in my bones. I am weary of holding it in. I'm weary of holding it in. Indeed, I can't do it anymore. That's literally where we're at. We're not doing it anymore. We're not limiting ourselves anymore. We're not shutting it down, shoving it down anymore. The weariness of holding it in has come to an end, and it is the time of the expression of I am in fullness, right? And then for what I'm going to be talking about today, Father reminded me of Ezekiel 37:2. We talked about it a little bit in the immersive, but the verse 2 is this: He led me all around among them, around the dry bones, right? I saw a great many bones on the floor of the valley, and indeed they were very dry. Now, I want to read that whole passage, Ezekiel 37:1-10, okay? It reads like this: The hand of the Lord was upon me. Ezekiel speaking. He's actually journaling here, if you will, in our words. The hand of the Lord was upon me, and he brought me out by his spirit and set me down in the middle of the valley, and it was full of bones. He led me all around them, and I saw a great many bones on the floor of the valley, and indeed they were very dry. Then he asked me, Son of man, can these bones come to life? O Lord, I replied, only you know. And he said to me, Prophesy concerning these bones and tell them, Dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the Lord God says to these bones: I will cause breath to enter you, and you will come to life. I will attach tendons to you and make flesh grow upon you and cover you with skin. I will put breath within you so that you will come to life. Then you will know that I am the Lord. So I prophesied as I had been commanded, and as I prophesied, there was suddenly a noise, a rattling, and the bones came together, bone to bone. As I looked on, tendons appeared on them, flesh grew, and skin covered them, but there was no breath in them. Then he said to me, Prophesy to the breath, prophesy, Son of man, and tell the breath that this is what the Lord says: Come from the four winds, O breath, and breathe into these slain so that they may live. Gosh, y'all, anyway. So I prophesied as he commanded me, and the breath entered them, and they came to life and stood on their feet, quote unquote. Okay. There's so much here, but we're only going to deal with one little word today. But don't be surprised if Kym comes back from my trip with Jessica next week with like weeks following this of other words in this passage that we're going to unpackage. Okay. But today we're going to be talking about the word dry. Now, I'm asking you, as I do so many times, y'all, everything you think you know or do know, I'm not minimizing that, about the word dry, every sermon you've ever taught or given or spoke or shared, please just set it aside for a second. Let your hands be empty so that you can receive something new and fresh, okay? Because we're going to be talking about the word dry today, but it's something, as when I left the immersive with all the ladies, Sally, Susie, Tracy, Vicky, Lori, Danielle, and all the other sister mom, this word just kept sounding in my spirit, the word dry. So we're going to unpackage that a little bit today, because we've been taught that it means a certain thing, right? And we even read this passage from a certain context because we think we know, and we do. Please don't misunderstand that. But what we think we know is like a drop in the bucket, and only from the perception of separation. Okay, so let's fill our hands and our beings with something new, with understanding, with an experiential knowing. Okay, so I just wanted to look at that word, the definition of that word dry, from a purely Webster's dictionary place. Okay, dry is defined as without moisture or liquid, lacking water, lacking freshness, vitality, or emotion, not producing or yielding, like as if in barrenness or fruitlessness. Okay, and it also means plain, factual, without warmth or spirit, without emotion, without feeling, right? Without in any kind of fluctuation in your voice per se. But in a mystical sense or a consciousness sense, dry doesn't just mean without water. It actually points to a condition of the soul or of consciousness where the flow of life, the flow of spirit, the flow of feeling seems to be absent. This dryness or dry can actually be a stage of awakening, and that's what we're going to talk about this morning. Because water, as we know, is divine source, is the divine flow, right? The mem, it is the flow. It is the divinity of the flow of emotions, embodiment, and all of those things flowing together in perfect unity. Perfect one voice, one sound. But dryness, when looking at it through the perspective of I am, is actually readiness. The place where form meets spirit, the place where form is woven with spirit. So when one experiences dry land or dry bones in this passage, it's not death. We've been taught and understood that this passage in Ezekiel 37 is about a group of people that had long been since dead, that all this was a valley of death. But today we're going to be looking at it through the invitation for breath. The invitation for breath, ruach, to function within substance. And can I add this? Like both were designed to function. Breath and substance, ruach and substance, earth, humanity, designed to function in the place that is one, the I am glory. I am revealed glory. Dryness reveals the falseness of separation and is, in a sense, a road sign for what's about to be made known and experienced. Have you ever thought that dryness was actually a road sign? Like you're feeling this dry, I don't know, I'm uncomfortable, I feel kind of, I just really don't care about much. Have you ever thought, instead of thinking something's wrong with you, that you now need to go get fixed in some way, shape, or form, but actually seen it as a road sign, going, oh, I know what's happening right here. I'm about ready to see something, know something, experience something from the place of I am glory revealed. I see. Literally, I'm about to know experientially resurrection realities embodied in me. Substance. I am glory revealed in substance. It literally, dryness, this whole passage about dry bones is about the pictorial description of the silence before the breath. The silence before the breath. That's what we're reading about in Ezekiel's detailed journal, experientially. The silence before the breath. Because dry is not a physical state, although that's how we've understood it. And please don't get me wrong, I'm not diminishing that, because like everything we talk about during these meetings, we wouldn't be here without that. So everything is from the place of honoring where we've been, understanding it's simply a doorway into where we're going consciously in our understanding experientially. Allowing, if you will, allowing the flow to come out of us, because all of that life is contained right here. We just simply have not been consciously aware of it, nor consciously aware of how to allow ourselves to be the expression of that. So dry is not a physical state, but a condition of consciousness. That's what this passage is talking about here. A consciousness that has forgotten its oneness with Father, with Source, if you will. The word for dry, that Hebrew word for dry, reveals a pathway from limitation to full expression. From that, we've talked about it so many times, from separation to oneness. And it's not movement, like you're not there yet, you're still over here, but you will eventually get there. Remember, it's not like that. That's been our understanding. I'm not yet it, but will be. No. It's all right here. It already is. It's a be thing. The so-called dry bones in Ezekiel 37 literally are showing us the human self before awareness of our I amness in full expression. When consciousness remembers its estate in divine breath, it remembers itself bone joining to bone, form joining to essence, and life being resurrected from within out. As humanity awakens to our embodying Christ, we discover we have nothing in common with death, because death belongs to only illusion, not to being, right? Death only belongs to illusion, not to the realities of being. The bones that are referred to in Ezekiel 37 are used, the descriptive word that is used there is dry, as we've been talking. And so I looked up that word in the Hebrew, and it's the word yavesh. Yavesh, Y-A-B as in boy, E-S. It's a yud beit shin. Yavesh comes from a root word meaning, get this. Okay, we're talking about dry, okay? That word for dry, yavesh, comes from a root word meaning confounded, ashamed, utterly. Of course, and dry, okay? But in the Aramaic, yavesh is described as to be void of vital strength, to be put to shame. That's very eye-opening, to be put to shame, to be made to blush, and especially used of a person whose hope has failed. That's the Aramaic definition of dry or yavesh. Now, when I read that, a few words stood out to me in that meaning, because we've thought of dry as a certain thing, as this passage is trying to talk to us about how somehow we've misstepped somewhere along the way and become dry without life. And I wanted to look at some of those words here and what they mean, because it's important for us to understand Father's intention as opposed to the way we've been taught this journal entry means. Okay, so let's look at the word confounded. Confounded means to be confused or perplexed. Isn't that interesting? To be confused or perplexed. We're talking about dry, guys. Remember, this is the word dry. Confused or perplexed, unable to understand or make sense of something. How many of you have ever used those words, especially when we're talking about spiritual things? Oh my gosh, it just doesn't make sense. I don't know how that can be true, because I've always been taught that this verse means this. And now you're telling me this. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Right? I've been in so many of those conversations, me personally, with other people. To be mixed, okay, perplexed, confounded means to be mixed or combined in a way that obscures clarity. Obscures clarity. Doesn't mean that clarity isn't existent. It simply means it obscures it, or distinction. And it also means, again, confounded, we're talking about confounded, equals dry, right? To frustrate, overthrow, or bring to ruin. To frustrate. Let's keep going. If we're looking at this word confounded, right? Dry, the one of the words used for the word dry, from a place of oneness. Confounded can symbolize this, the collapse of dualistic separation. Hello. Where categories or distinctions are no longer used to divide, but unity or higher awareness emerges. You know, when I read this, all of a sudden I thought of, oh, Father, you are so incredible. And that is what the tree of the knowledge of good and evil looks like, right? Separation. This is good, this is bad. This is right, this is wrong. I'm this, you're that. Us and them. I'm saved, you're not. I don't mean to meddle. I'm sorry. Not really. Okay, let's keep going. A state of divine disruption. A state of divine disruption that is confounded, where the ego's order is confounded, so that true unity of spirit may be revealed. Right? Because the only thing that causes the dualistic separation is ego, is the reality that resides in, the framework that is. In the Tower of Babel, we talked about this during the Mountaintop Immersive, right? The word confounded of language represents the divine intervention that dissolves false unity built on self rather than spirit. That's what that whole story was about. The one language wasn't everybody spoke. I think it's believed that everybody spoke Hebrew or something like that when they talk about the one language. That wasn't it. They were speaking from the place of I am. I am is the one language. One language is from that place of understanding our identity. And everything, all of the other diversified, divided languages simply came because of a false unity, a false I amness, a false, we've got to all speak this, and then we know we're all in agreement, we're all unified. That's not what it means. That's not what it means. Now let's look at ashamed, right? Ashamed is defined as feeling guilt, embarrassment, or remorse because you believe you've done something wrong or fallen short. That's the key word right there, because you believe. And so because you believe you've done something wrong based on a set of laws and structures or fallen short, then suddenly guilt, shame, embarrassment can come in and occupy space. That's where ashamed, that's one of the definitions. It's also feeling inferior or unworthy in the presence of others or before one's own conscience. Ashamed is also defined as reluctant or unwilling to do something because it seems improper or beneath one's dignity. That word shame is also rooted in the meaning to cover, right? To cover, as if one feels the need to hide oneself from exposure or from truth. Does this remind you of anything? It reminded me of Genesis 3. Y'all know I love Genesis, especially the first several chapters. But they're the perfect example, Adam and Eve. After eating the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, eating from that, consuming that reality, taking it on, taking it in as their structure. Never mind, I'm not even going to say that. They suddenly realized they were naked and hid themselves. Why? Because here comes Father going, who told you you were naked? Right? Anyway, that's a whole different conversation. So to be ashamed is not merely guilt, it's the instinct to conceal, right? To conceal one's essence, to cover the light of yourself out of fear of judgment or separation. I don't know if they're going to like me. I don't know if they're going to like what I say. So I'm going to keep my mouth shut. So I'm going to keep my mouth shut because I'm afraid of judgment or separation. All of us have experienced those types of things. No judgment. But from a Christedness lens, shame is the illusion of separation from divine wholeness. It arises when the human self believes it stands apart from God, unworthy or impure, or because I've done something, I've been disobedient, I took a left turn when I should have gone right, I chose this instead of that. And so somehow, because these are now my experiences, I missed it somewhere along the way. But in awakening, shame is transmuted, right? When I understand my I amness, not here, but here, I live from I am. Any place where shame would try to have bake up a cozy little bed and take up residence, that is transmuted into transparency. The realization that nothing in you needs to be hidden because all is already seen, known, and loved by Father in the place of oneness. Now let's look at one other word. Utterly. As you know, I'm sure all of you understand, utterly means defined as completely, absolutely, fully, and entire. Okay, that is the meaning, the definition of utterly. Completely, absolutely, fully, and entire. Now, from oneness, from the perspective of oneness, utterly, that word utterly, and again, y'all remember, we're talking about the word dry. We're looking at components, attributes, characteristics, if you will, of the word dry, dry bones, dry. Okay. So from the perspective of oneness, of I amness, utterly implies a totality of being, where something is expressed without division and without withholding. To live utterly is to live from wholeness of your essence, the full outpouring of divine expression through you, not just your spirit, through your physical form. That is utterly. Is that possible? I'm curious. Are we designed, are we capable of living in our being, in our body, in the essence of our substance, the full expression of I am? I believe yes is the answer to that. That's me. That's Kym. I believe emphatically yes. That's how we're designed. Spiritually, it's the opposite of fragmentation. It's actually complete transparency, full embodiment, unreserved giving of self. In essence, it's utterly alive, is to let the light of your I amness express without limit. The utmost fullness of the expression of I am from your inner being out, not just in words, not just in words and actions, but words, actions, and physical embodiment of I am. Incredible. Now I want to also look at this word dry and the letters, the Hebrew letters that mean yavesh. But I want to look at them in the light of Christ consciousness, okay? Because that is the picture we're painting. That is what I want your heart, your being to walk, to go from today, this morning, as we gather. I want you to be chewing and feasting on what Father is unveiling within you regarding the realities, the revelation, the revealing of this word dry and what it actually is an invitation to. Yavesh is made up of the Hebrew letters Yud, Beit, and Shin. Now, Yud is the picture of a hand, right, or an arm, and it symbolizes creation or the metaphysical. It's the smallest Hebrew letter, as we know, and the form is the beginning or end of every single letter. The Yod is involved in every single letter in the Hebrew alphabet. But it actually represents the divine energy, the place where everything begins, the spark. It indicates Father's omnipresence in all things. It's a pictorial affirming to us, confirming for us that Father is involved in everything, that place of oneness not only is our existence, but cannot ever be separated from our existence, because we are so intricately woven and designed out of Him. I hope that makes sense. Yud speaks of the infinite potential that all of us carry, that all of us are a part of, that all of us are coming to the realization of how that infinite potential can be expressed from within us out. It is the seed of creation, right? The essence before definition, the essence, the intention before words and syllables are even spoken, or even drawn pictorially, or even written in any form or fashion. It is the beginning place, the place of where I am language even begins before it takes on form, substance, language, picture, form, etc. And can I say this? I don't know if you're aware of this. When you touch awareness itself, Yod begins moving through you. When you simply touch it, even if you say, I don't even get it, I don't even understand what Kym is saying. Just by you saying that, Yod is already moving through you to make you aware and expand you in revelation and understanding. Isn't that incredible? That's how Yod functions. That is who we are. That is who we are, y'all. That is even beyond. Yod is simply the word, the description, the language, the picture we put to that reality that is. Okay, let's go on to Beit. Bait, the house, right? It's a picture of a house, a tent, a dwelling, a household, or a family. Bait is the symbol of blessing in creation, the duality, plurality. But it also is involved anytime something is spoken about being in or among, abiding. That's bait. It's the womb of creation. When anything is spoken of in context of being in something or abiding within, okay? Your body, your life, your relationships are all sacred bait, if you will, where I am is expressed through. And then let's look at Shin, the flame, the breath, the teeth consuming, divine power to devour, destroy, or something sharp. All of those things are the symbols of what Shin is, okay? Shin represents the complete perfection of our Heavenly Father in all of creation, the place where his fullness is realized. Shin, the letter Shin, carries the energy of fire, of divine breath. And it actually, the picture form, it has three prongs, right? If you look at it in just one direction, there is another one, but we're not going to talk about that today. The spirit, symbolizing the spirit, soul, and body, the three prongs, the Shin, the W, right? But it actually, when we see it, because it's part of the same one letter, it pictorially constantly is revealing the flow of oneness within those three aspects, burning away any illusion of separation. It literally activates the resurrection reality frequency, leaving only light, leaving only oneness, leaving only I am. So if we were to look at Yod, Beit, and Shin and what they individually represent, and were to reword that word dry, Yavesh, we could say it like this: a vessel designed to manifest the inflow of divine fire and breath, no matter the perceived state. What? Let me say that again. A vessel designed to manifest the inflow of divine fire and breath, no matter the perceived state. Just these three letters for dry, Yavesh, speak to I am the hand of the creator, expressing the divine point energy of infinite potential, and that is all and in all. I'm the living house where spirit and matter are one, seamless essence, the womb of creation continually giving birth through the abiding presence of I am. And within this place of fullness, burns the holy fire of divine power, the breath of Father flowing as one eternal flame that consumes all illusion, revealing the perfection and wholeness of God, realized and actualized in every part of me in all of creation. That is the word dry. A little different than what we've ever been taught it means. A vessel designed to manifest the inflow of divine fire and breath, no matter the perceived state. This is the living process of substance, of humanness, being aware of our I amness and aligning with the language of oneness. Because that is the language of oneness. I am. The dry places within us are not cursed. They're not what we've been taught. They're void of God. They're not void of God. They're not void of Holy Spirit. It's actually the turning point, or what I said earlier, the road sign, where sorrow becomes the womb of divine realization. You know, when we read in this passage in Ezekiel, he writes down, the voice asks this question, can these bones live? Consciousness is being invited to see the door and open it with our mouth. Not just any door, not just random door, and not just doors based on my own perception of things. See the door. What door? Father is showing us the door. Our inner being of oneness is showing us the door, that place where I am. And sometimes that door looks impossible. Sometimes that door is like, is it just me, or am I actually going to say this? Because this seems so out there. I would venture to say yes. That's the door, right? Because I am, when you've seen me, you've seen Father, means something. Not just random, not just different belief systems, but I am. There is a plumb line. I and my Father are one. I can do nothing that my Father isn't doing. I'm not going to move of my own ego and self. I'm sticking to the plumb line that is Father, that is all that he is, that is his very intention, the very reality of his heart intent. That is my plumb line. That is what I move with. That is what I know. That is the only voice I hear. That is the voice I follow. None other will I follow. Nothing else has anything in common with me than his voice, right? To see that even what appears dead is still within the field of life. What? To see anything that appears dead is still within the field of life. So how do I see different? Not just these, but these eyes. How do I see and then move with that life? The voice says, prophesy to these bones. What does that mean? Prophesy according to my religious structure of what I know? No, not, I mean, yes, but if that's all you know, actually what this voice is saying, prophesy to these bones, is actually saying, speak awareness into unconsciousness. Speak I am into the places where you don't realize I am exists. When the voice says, when the Lord says, hear the word of the Lord, it's actually saying the intention is let each part of you remember I am. Speak awareness into unconsciousness. Let each part of you remember I am. The language of one. When breath, ruach, enters the bones, right? The dry bones, they stand up, unified and alive, radiant. This is the resurrection of consciousness, of that awareness of I amness. That transforms matter. That realization of my entire being, body, soul, spirit, is the expression of I am. That transforms matter. Even this. Do you realize that awakening in here of I am, that language of one, transforms this? Not just here. Because as this comes alive and awakened to those places that you don't even realize I am, and all that that means, it shifts this and shifts this. The remembering of all the scattered parts of self into wholeness, coming into wholeness. That's what that picture is talking about. The scattered parts of self where humanity has believed the lie of separation, the lie of I'm not doing it right, I'm ashamed, I'm confounded, I'm confused, I don't understand. All of those places coming together, woven together to realize I've never been separated. I've never been separated from Father. I've never been left out in the cold. I've never been confounded. That's all been a facade. That's all been smoke and mirrors. I've always been whole. I've always been one. And I've always understood the language of oneness. Always. Because it's in me. It's part of me. It is from the very fabric of my design. The remembering of all the places we still consciously and subconsciously have difficulty to believe and say, I am fill in the blank, right? Is there an I am statement that you're struggling with? This is talking about that, right? It really is. This is talking about that. The remembering of all the places that we consciously or subconsciously go, oh gosh, I don't think that applies to me. I mean, I really am struggling saying that's me. That's those places are being remembered. Each and every remembering moment that you and I experience is what we read about in Ephesians 4:8-10, in Psalm 16:10, in Acts 2:27. And I'm sorry, sister, do you mind putting those passages in the chat? I apologize if I didn't say that at the beginning. Thank you. Ephesians 4:8-10, Psalms 16:10, and Acts 2:27. Do you know what all those are talking about? Those references? Remember when Jesus descended and preached to the captives? That's what all three of those are referencing. Do you realize this is what was happening? He was going into those places within you and I and spoke I am, the language of oneness, to all those places within substance that has believed the lie of separation, the smoke screen of separation, the smoke and mirrors about separation, that somehow is the framework, the structure humanity was built from, in, and exists in until someday after we die and go to heaven. But that's not it. It is a remembering the sound that is already right here. Remembering the voice that is already right here, because I am woven from the voice. My very substance is woven from the reality of I am. I don't have to find it somewhere outside myself. I am, you are the physical expression, manifestation of that. So every moment, every single time you or Kym or somebody makes some kind of I am revelation moment, like we do most Sunday mornings, do you realize that is a remembering moment for all those places within you that have struggled with that truth? And you are literally in that moment preaching to the captives that have been held hostage to a falsity that is not real. A structure of sin and separation that is not the reality of I am. That is what that means. But we've crafted something around it saying, no, it means this. You are Ezekiel, the voice that speaks to the dry bones, the places within yourself that have forgotten the realities of I amness internally, calling the forgotten parts of your being to remember your I amness. Remember when Jesus said in John 10:18, I lay down my life, I have authority to take it again? Remember that? Yeshua says that, but listen to the way it's said. It's translated in the Mirror Bible. Y'all know I love the Mirror Bible, but it reads like this. Okay, are you ready? I don't know if you're ready for it. John 10:18. Are you ready? Reads like this. No one takes my life from me. I know who I am when I lay it down. And from that place, from that same place of my I amness, I take it up again. Okay, I got to read it again. No one takes my life from me. I know who I am when I lay it down. And from that same place of my I amness, I take it up again. Okay, so let me ask you a question. What if, okay, just bear with me. I want you to contemplate something. What if the part that Yeshua says here, I know who I am, what if that is actually the power of being aware and understanding intimately your I amness that actually empowers anything that would attempt to take your life from you has no authority any longer? And I'm not just talking about your life, your peace, your rest, your shalom, your safety, your all of the mental and heart feelings. I'm also talking about your physical life. What if you can so know who you are, the I am of you, right? You can so understand experientially, I am, that what we understand as death itself has no effect or bearing on you at all, in any form, ever. Does our I amness go to that length? And do we think that that's the epitome, the end of the lot? Like, is that the farthest? Is that the ultimate of understanding your I amness, experientially so? Because I would like to propose that that's not even a drop in the bucket of the extent of what I amness actually is and means. How I amness is manifest, desires to be made manifest out of you, desires to be made known in all of creation outside of you, that are actually the things Yeshua was talking about when he said, greater things will they do than I've done. Okay, do you realize that? I mean, let that sink in. Because the story of Yeshua that we have as he walked in the earth in his human body came to the point of death and resurrection, right? Are you guys following me? Death and resurrection. And that was the extent of his story that is written for us to read. I'm not saying that was the end. Please don't misunderstand what I'm saying there. That is what is written in Bible for us to read, right? But then after that, he makes a statement of greater things will they do than I've done. So how much farther, bigger, beyond, unlimited is I am, you, the expression of I am, that goes infinitely beyond what we understand as death. I hope I'm making sense there. Because so for our structure of thinking, death is the ultimate end of something, to beginning of something. But what if it was never meant to be understood that way? What if you knowing who you are in your I amness, because that's so huge, that is so settled in you, that death, the human understanding of death has nothing in common with you. It's like that doesn't even, that's not even part of my world. Because this is not speaking of in John 10:8 about martyrdom, about being a martyr. Do you realize that Yeshua in this moment is speaking of being a master at something? What was he a master of? What had he mastered? I amness. That was what he was revealing. The mastery of I amness, the actual so being one with the realities of I am, that nothing that did not have the same resonant sound of I amness could even exist in his presence or world. Because the awakened I am in here recognizes life upon life upon life in all forms, including our physical body. Now I want to read to you John 14:30. The ruler of this world is coming and he has nothing in me. The mirror says it like this in John 14:30. In my going, my silence should not disturb you. The ruler of this world order comes, but this voice has nothing in common with mine. There is no resemblance or resonance. There's no resemblance or resonance. We've always read this and been taught that that means Satan, right? The ruler of this world order, that's referring to Satan. But do you realize that that's actually referring to ego? That's actually what that's referring to. All those places where ego says you're separated, you should be ashamed, live out of confounded, you won't be I am until X. All of those things, all of those thought patterns that separate you from God, that say you are separate from I am. You're not quite I am yet, but you'll get there. Don't you worry about it. You'll get there. You're just not quite there yet. You still have a little bit more stuff to deal with. But eventually, you know, at when I was in Arizona with the group at the mountaintop immersive, I spoke a little bit about resonance and about bones and all of that. And I just wanted to bring up one little piece here. Resonance is the harmony between vibrations. It's the actual harmony between vibrations. Resonance actually occurs when one vibrating system causes another vibrating system to vibrate at the same frequency. Or in other words, entrainment, I think is what it's called, entrainment. Like when you strike one tuning fork, the other tuning fork starts to vibrate at that same speed and pitch, even if it's across the room, without anybody touching it. Like you don't have to touch this tuning fork. You strike this one, and this one immediately starts to vibrate in the same pitch as the first one. In our language, that's alignment. When your inner frequency is in alignment with your outer frequency, or actually vice versa. When your outer frequency starts to vibrate at the same sound that you in the same language of one I am as what's inside. How is that even? Because your entire being is I am. We experience it all the time when two people's hearts are aligned. They can talk to each other heart to heart, where many of us are practicing that. That harmony, alignment transforms. So the ruler of this world that Yeshua is talking about there is the egocentric system of thought, the belief of separation, of fear, or mortality. To say he has nothing in common with me is saying, if I can rephrase it in Kym language, ego, the structure of belief that I am separate from Father, that I'm created to live from a structure empowered by fear, and I'm created with a limitation linked to what is mortal, has nothing in common with me. It's not the structure I am, is. It's not the structure of oneness. So thus, it has nothing in common. It can't even exist in my world. Instead, we're aware and live from our Christedness that has no resonance with limitation or decay. That is Christedness. There's no part of me that belongs to death. I am the pure living expression of awareness I am, in form, in physical form. When humanity awakens to this truth, what they've understood as dryness ceases to exist, because every aspect, every cell, every system, every thought, remembering, knows, is, and lives I am. The living water of spirit flows unobstructed through every cell of the body and through the collective body of humanity. Do you realize that when those aha moments happen in it, as you and I sit with Father in I am, in the conversation of I am, do you realize that you are actually remembering the very words, the very truths, the very reality of Christ speaking, preaching to the captives in Bible language? Do you realize that? That you are remembering that sound language of I am. Because I am, you are the breath of God moving in this body. Nothing about you, of you, in you belongs to death. Nothing in you has anything in common with death. You and I are I am life, remembering itself in every facet and possibility. Right? Amen. Okay.